Yeah, man. So years ago, I was a reactor operator in the Navy. Same job as Homer Simpson. I actually got to start up a reactor for the first time. I don't think I would have left freelancing for anything else, but they got me into this new world, of working at startups. And, like, the number one tip that I had for everyone is that, like, don't try to build it from scratch. Pick your one platform that's your main one, but then also cross-post it. Get it out there in different places, but make it easy. I think a real important thing to help it build is to have a regular schedule. And when you're consistent with that, it makes it so much easier for other people to plan and to tell other people about it. And it's not like you got to check the calendar and remember what the date is, because it's just whatever the third Wednesday happens to be.
Boom. Hey everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Everything Outside Code. And today I have an amazing guest, Joseph Petty, who's
Hey,
the head of developer experience at Hands on Table. Hey Joseph, welcome
hey, how's it
to the
going?
show today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
excited
it's
to be here.
great. I'm excited for this one as well. Today we're going to be talking about local communities, especially tech communities. I started my career running and building and participating in communities. They're a huge reason why I'm here. And I believe the same for Joseph as well. So we're going to be talking about all of that. How do you build it? What does a great one look like? We'll go into a bit about like the benefits to companies that sponsor these and what they get out of it. Because I understand marketing teams drive and support these communities. Is there anything back for them? What does that look like? You can expect some of that. There's also an interesting topic we'll touch on. We're going to be talking about focusing more on creating config for products rather than just generating full code with AI. It's a bit contrarian, so I'm excited to learn all about that. I'm just hearing about that paradigm for the first time. So I'm excited to hear all that from Joseph today. Well, to the man of the moment, Joseph, thanks for coming on today, man. We could kick things off by, just telling us a bit about yourself. You'd hinted on being a reactor engineer in the Navy
Yeah.
a while ago, and then moving on to leading developer experience. How did you make that journey? Where did it all start from?
Yeah, man. So years ago, I was a reactor operator in the Navy. Same job as Homer Simpson. I actually got to start up a reactor for the first time, I think, when I was 24. Um, Really cool job. And I was an instructor in the nuke program. So I trained other people going through the pipeline. I was in Charleston, South Carolina. And so I got out of the Navy and moved here to Tallahassee, worked at a magnetic testing laboratory. It's part of Los Alamos, which that's I think in Nevada, but it's another campus that they have here at part of Florida State University. And so anyway, I worked there. Similar job. It's not nuclear power, but a lot of the same type of equipment. It was very transferable skills. And part of my side job there, I just got involved with was maintaining this database. They had it was written in FileMaker Pro, which is like a old uh, product from Apple that's similar to Access, like Microsoft Access, but for Mac. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there was like just little changes that needed done, and the person that built it wasn't involved in that anymore. They'd moved up to lots of other important stuff and didn't have time to maintain it. So
Yeah.
I taught myself. And I'm like, hey, I need admin access so I can just fix this drop down and do little things here and there. And so I taught myself enough. They gave me the admin rights to it, and then I just became the guy. And then, like, they would need something else fixed, and I do that, and then something else, and one thing led to another, and then side work took off, and then I was working more on the side than I was doing my main job, but it was paying better. I was doing really good on the side through like Upwork and Fiverr.
Mm-hmm.
So in like 2016, I started my own company, Greenflux, and started basically doing the same thing for small businesses, helping them build internal tools. And I bounced around to a couple different platforms. I found AppSmith, I think around 2020 or 2021, and I just like fell in love with the platform. I migrated all my customers to it. It was exactly what I needed because I kept hitting limits in other platforms, and then I'd have to tie in N8N or Google Apps Script or some other thing to like get to that last piece, right?
Yeah.
Whereas AppSmith was very flexible in the API integrations and the UI, and so I got into that, and I entered a hackathon they had in 2022, and I won first, second, and fourth place. And the next week, the CEO called me up and offered me a job, and I went and started making their templates at first, and then tutorials, and then videos. Um, the last year, I moved up to head of DevRel. It was like all of 2025, and then just this year, I became the head of developer experience for Hands on Table. So yeah, weird career path kind of shifted through side work that just took off. It wasn't a plan at all. But I've enjoyed the work, and it was, it was paying better and it was more fun. So here we are.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna ask if you enjoy it, but then you answered that already, which
Yeah.
is cool. That's an interesting transition. At some point, did you feel afraid to make the jump, or was it because you could make a lot more from doing all the side work? So did you feel like, oh, it's gonna be a huge shift to go from being a Reactor engineer to being a software engineer building
Yeah.
apps?
Um, because the side work built up, and I didn't make the transition until I already had enough side work. So what that part wasn't really scary. And I was fortunate enough that my wife had, job with the insurance, so I didn't need that. I could freelance, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it just between that and the timing, it worked out, and I didn't have any issues, transitioning and having steady work. So I've
Yeah.
really enjoyed it, man. I honestly thought I was never going to work for another company again. Freelancing was going great. I had tons of business, but then I was building all day in AppSmith. Like that was my tool of choice, and I constantly had to find the next client and the next one. And then they called me up, like the company that directly is like, hey, you want to come build templates and work directly for AppSmith? I'm like, hell yeah, I do. Like that's what I'm doing. I'm building anyway, and now I don't have to find clients. So I don't think I would have left freelancing for anything else. But they got me into this new world, of working at startups and SaaS companies, and now I'm on my second one. And the cool thing is, I was the first U.S. hire for AppSmith, and then at one point, I think there was 15 or 20 or so in all of like North and Central America. And now I'm the first U.S. hire for Hands on Table. So it's an interesting experience to be onboarded to a company as the only U.S. person.
Yeah, and I'm curious, how does anyone, or I'd say, what in AppSmith made it special for you? Because products nowadays are looking for champions like you were for AppSmith, right?
Mhm.
Someone that totally loves the product, that they become a power user, and they'd love to have you be part of the team. So
Yeah.
what was it about AppSmith? Was it the product? Was it the user experience? Was it support? Or
You know,
it was just the stars aligning?
yeah. Several things were like prereqs, right? Like I had to solve the use case or whatever the things I was doing, which it did perfectly. I also looked at Retool at first, but I'm a huge fan of open source, so that was another plus. But honestly, like the thing that really sold me was the community and the fact that the team, everybody up to the CEO and CPO and everybody would be in there in the Discord answering questions, and they're like I remember my first experience with the team on their Discord because I asked if something was possible. They said no, but that's an awesome idea. I just made a feature request in GitHub for it. Here's the link. Like that was the response all in one transaction. And my
Wow.
experience with other platforms was that feature requests, like you're lucky if they even hear you, right? Or like it takes a lot from the team to get their attention, and multiple people have to ask before it gets put on the roadmap or whatever. This was like awesome idea. Here, we just put it in GitHub. We'll start on it.
Yeah.
I was sold.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's a lesson too for anyone else building out there, that every interaction matters, because you don't know who's going to go on to become developer relations expert and just be a champion for life of your product and keep talking about it, just based off a single interaction. But let's come a bit to the future. Hands at Table. What does Hands at Table do, and what you do there?
Yeah, so Hands on Table is a JavaScript data grid library. It's similar to like AG Grid, MUI I think has one. So the core library itself, it's more about replicating the interactions of a spreadsheet, whereas some of those other libraries are a table, and it has a lot of the same features of like drop downs and whatnot. But ours is very specific to those spreadsheet interactions. So you can drag a column or a cell or whatever and autofill the ones below it with the same value. Like things that you would never have in a normal web app that only spreadsheets do. Copying and pasting a range of any arbitrary value, right? Like in a table, in an HTML table, when you start dragging to select, it'll get all of the first row and then part of the second, and then all of the third. But you can't get part of a row. It doesn't do that like just grab a column thing. Like that's a spreadsheet interaction. And so the Hands on Table library does that if you want your app to really look and feel and behave like a spreadsheet. And then Hyperformula, the other library, adds the calculation engine, and it works with all the same formulas, the exact same like string that you would have of cell A2 to colon, whatever, like all those annotations and that input works and gives you the exact same output with like 400 something formulas. And so you can migrate your logic from Excel or Google Sheets or whatever, and you don't have to write any new code. You give it the exact same formulas you were using before, and then it will give you the exact same output. And migration is that easy. Like there's no translating, how do I turn this pivot table or VLOOKUP into JavaScript? You just give it the same VLOOKUP and it works.
Wow. So this is literally golden for anyone that wants to build Excel on steroids or wants to build a better Google Sheets with AI, for instance.
Yes, and it also works server side and headless, and it can create and edit and work with Excel files or take a CSV and then turn that into. So it doesn't have to be a UI or a spreadsheet like end user product. You could have a backend pipeline that takes a CSV or an Excel file that gets saved in a S3 bucket, and it adds formula columns and saves the output to a ETL pipeline or something. So maybe there's no UI at all.
Yeah, I imagine an Excel Ninja agent that runs Hands on Table in a sandbox somewhere and uses that to compute massive amounts of data, like
It's
data
already
analyst.
happening. Yes, I can't.
Oh wow!
I can't say who it is, but there's a major AI company that's are already using us for that. Like it's out there in production, and when the general public end users, ask the AI to do certain things with Excel, like there's pieces of it that were involved. I just can't say which company.
Yeah, wow, well, but that's I'm almost pushed to ask, but I'm like, you just leave it.
I may have
just
to
leave it.
Yeah, we might have to even blurt that out later. I don't know. I think I can only say that much.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. That's a cool product. So we're building a system of record for marketers internally. It's called Boki. But we realized that to do that, we needed to rebuild a couple like foundational systems. Like you'd want to have some issue tracker. Previously, we used Linear for that in isolation. We wanted to have a great editor. And currently, I'm figuring out that building something like Google Docs is the worst thing on the planet.
Yeah.
That's why no one rebuilds it, right?
Yeah.
So we're rebuilding like a collaborative editor that persists with like very low latency connections and can manage like multiple collaborations and comments and so much. And the next thing we're thinking about obviously is how can we move away from Sheets? Because at the end of the day, we want to bring all the data and all the tools we use onto one platform so we can put intelligence on top of it and make the most out of all this context without any of the current ways of just piping data. So I guess once we get to like the Excel spreadsheet portion of it, this would be a great fit for us to check out.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's made for. Those internal tools that are still in a spreadsheet, and it's great for prototyping or for like a small number of people. But when you've got tons of people that have their hands in there, and a row gets added, and then it breaks all the formulas, or
Yeah,
there's so many things that just makes it brittle. So at some point, yeah, those should be migrated to a web app, and the table part's easy, but like the formulas, that there's a lot of complexity to replicate that, and it's great being able to just use them as is with your existing formulas, and you just plug it into this library, and you get the same output. So that's exactly what it's for. Help get your business logic out of the spreadsheet and into your own app.
yeah. No, I totally agree because you don't want to mess up an existing experience, right? Someone that's used to sheets and how they do things, you don't want to mess it up for them when you move them over to a different platform just off the basis of this is going to be more intelligent and you're going to get all your marketing context in one place.
Yeah.
That's not enough excuse if it's just a broken experience for them.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the users and like how they're going to interact with it after you try to migrate, right? Years ago when I was freelancing, there were several clients I had where there's a team of people that are all used to doing this process in a spreadsheet, and then you migrate it to an app and you think you get all the basics covered, and they're like, wait, we can't use undo redo anymore. We can't copy paste, like things that you didn't think were that important, and it's like critical to their daily use. So yeah, this covers all those bases, and you don't have to write any extra code. It's literally just a flag, like set column editing to true, set the column filter or drag rearrange to true. You don't have to
Yeah.
write any new code. It's just a config object.
Yeah. Now let's talk about config objects. I think this is a good segue into that. You mentioned that a
Yeah.
bit before we started this. You talked about how everything could be config files so that there is some determinism first with AI built, because that's what I would see configs would guarantee at least. And then secondly, you build more reliable systems because there is a system of record for the product.
You're
Is
right,
that
right.
what you mean by using AI to generate config first before the product? Or what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think it is. It's the safest approach to expose the AI output in production. So like if you're wanting to have the AI write some brand new function, new code that's going to be executed, that's that's not safe to take it straight from the AI and run in production. First time ever this code's been executed and it hasn't been debugged yet or whatever. So you don't want to take the AI output and run it in prod as a function. But if the output of that AI is just a config object, that's the input to a function, and that code is yours. It's like a library that like hands on table that generates a table component, or it could be like JSON form is something similar where a config object populates the entire form, every field, the validations, the default values, all that stuff. The AI doesn't have to write any code as far as the entire shell and the wrapper and the template. It's literally just filling in the blanks. It's like Mad Libs, it's here's all
Yeah.
the fill in the blanks, and the worst that can happen is that your input parameter is invalid, and then the function handles that however you have your error logic, right? It can tell you that the input parameter for a URL is invalid or whatever. So running an AI output as a config in production, that can be safe because it's just a JSON object. You can use JSON schema to validate it. The function is going to check it and give you error checking, and the thing that's running in production is your code that has not changed. It's just an input parameter. So we're working on something for Hands on Table that does this for our themes. We have all these different tokens for our theme, and you can connect it to your design system if you want, or you can tweak each one. There's some top level ones like light mode and dark mode and the font, and they kind of cascade down and affect a bunch of stuff. And then there's really granular ones like if a cell is selected, what's the color of the border or the background or whatever. And you could spend like hours and hours trying to make something look right just by trying to tweak all those little properties, right?
Yeah.
So what we're working on is this AI chatbot where you ask it to create a theme for you, and it knows the names of all the tokens. You don't have to describe. Like it knows it's called cell selected background border color, whatever the heck the token
Yeah.
is, right? It knows all those, and so I'll ask it to do something crazy like Lord of the Rings theme or the Matrix or whatever, and it fills in all the blanks, and it makes this awesome looking theme that gives you that feel of like Lord of the Rings. It picked like a script font, and it had like a tan kind of color with brown font, and like it just thought about every property, what it could be, and then that object gets sent to the user, and it fills out the form, and it shows the end result, and that's fine, that's safe, and production straight from the AI to the end user because it's not running new code. It's just a config object.
Yeah. Wow. So there's still a component. How do you bound the AI to just consider only parameters from the config object? Because obviously that's going to be a constraint since this AI is likely general purpose,
Mm-hmm.
probably has some opinion now or some reasoning and feels like it could do something different. Do you set constraints
Yeah.
or guidelines to it?
Yeah, the structured outputs in the OpenAI API, you can define the JSON schema for the output, and so it has to constrain to that. And you can check it again on your end, but if you use the structured outputs, then it has to conform to that before it even responds to you. So that's one check. Excuse me. And then I also have like system prompt stuff, guidance, just telling it like when to use which values. So the JSON schema is literally just a list of the allowed values. It doesn't say when to use which ones, So the system prompt will give it the guidance of how to fill that out.
Oh, so both the input and the output are both structured data
Yeah,
in this case.
yeah. Part of the input is the user's prompt, so that's not really structured. But then
Yeah.
there's a lot of other stuff going with it, and then it knows all the property names, and it spits out a config object and it refreshes the table, and boom, it looks like anything you want without trying to tweak and find the name of all those little properties.
Yeah. That's cool. Is this within the same premise of folks that swear on JSON outputs for everything an AI has to do, especially for like asset generation, for like pages, videos, images? They have certain structured JSON object they put in as part of the prompt, and they expect if it is for like textual content, they expect like a certain JSON object out that they would in turn use to build up maybe a page. Or if it's for a video, it generates a video, but the input is always like a defined object. Is that within the same premise?
Yeah, it does make the interoperability easier. It's human readable, but it's also going to be compatible as an input format to pretty much any other program or platform.
Yeah. How much of a transformation do you feel like teams would get if they would adopt this system over the current way of doing stuff, just prompting things to life?
It makes a huge difference on how much time you spend prompting on token usage. So think about an example where you're trying to replicate a bunch of features from, say, Airtable or Clay or whatever, and you start out with a basic table component, and you're prompting one feature at a time. So you get the table, and then you're like, okay, now I want a drop down with a multi-select. And so it writes that, some more custom code and more tokens, And then you're like, okay, now I want a cell that's got the tags or chips, like the little pill looking colored tags. And so it writes that code. And then a date picker, And then you're like, hey, add formulas. It's like, you know what? Actually, we should wipe all this out, start over, and use a library that does all that stuff with a couple config objects, and it's way less code. But to get there, you just burnt a ton of tokens and wasted your time and prompted your way through, right? So I think that's the biggest benefit is you just have to plan ahead a little bit more and figure out what library gets you most of the way there. And then tell the AI to use that library, and now it becomes way more efficient. But if you get there one feature at a time and it doesn't know where you're heading, then the AI can't really tell you what's the best library. So you got to have all your specs, at least your main features in mind, and put all that out there and either ask the AI what libraries you should use or just go do that like research yourself. And especially when it's a UI library, like I think that people should go look at it, go look at their docs, look at the examples. Uh, does the chart, if it's like a charting library, do you like the way that the Sankey diagram looks in eCharts, or do you want the one from Chart.js? Uh, so I think that people should do a little research on their own and figure out what library fits their use case best, and then prompt the AI to use that and write minimal code and leverage a library to do as much as you can.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for the tips. Um, let's move on to local communities, local tech
Cool.
communities.
Yeah.
Why'd you build those? Why do they even matter?
Man, I have three that I help lead now. Um, I started them because there weren't any here. Because I'm in a smaller town like Tallahassee. I mean, it's big compared to where I grew up, but it's still, smaller than Miami or Atlanta. Definitely not New York or San Francisco. So there's no local regular tech things for me to just go and drop into. Like if I was in San Francisco, um, and working in DevRel, I need experience in that stuff. I want to do talks. I want to like go to more than the two or three conferences that the company's going to for the year, and like kind of like be more involved in that and just be able to drop in. But since they weren't happening here, um, first I checked Meetup and I found one that they were active before COVID and they hadn't got back together yet. And so I reached out to one of the organizers. We got the first meeting set up, and we've done it every month since then. And I think as of February, it was a full year. So we're like 14 months in on the oldest one that I've helped reboot. Um, and then there was another one that a guy had created. He's also involved in the first one, and it was just for Azure AI because he works for Microsoft. Well, I was about to create my own group for AI. And I'm like, man, our town is not big enough. We don't need two AI groups. So I asked him, I'm like, hey, do you want to make this all AI? And I'll help you lead it. And so we did that. And that one had not had a meeting at all yet. It hadn't met in person. So we got the first meeting organized there, I think a few months after the first group. And then I got it turned into a chapter of global AI. So like we went from an online only group that had never met. We got a couple meetings and started to get organized. And then I got it approved as a global AI maybe 6 or 8 months ago. And that one meets every month now. And then the third one I actually started from scratch. So the first two were just kind of like rebooting groups. And the third one is Code and Coffee. They're a national org with chapters all over, but they didn't have one in Florida yet. And I know the founder, CEO of it. And so I asked him if we could start one. And so the first two that we have are very informal networking, social things. We're hanging out after work at a pizza place, having beer and pizza, and like it's very just hang out, chill. And we do presentations. I usually do one, and a few other guys will end up presenting. But the thing is, it's not the best environment for like a hands-on workshop and everybody having their computer out. And so that's what we do with Code and Coffee. That one's at a local startup incubator. It's actually where I started my freelance business through like 10 years ago. And so there it's like a hands-on workshop where we have a presentation at the beginning that's like an intro to whatever the thing is that we're going to do. And then we guide people, and there's mentors to help, and then the people that are there attending, and so sometimes it's hardware. We did one with ESP32 boards. It's like a Raspberry Pi, but like way smaller and lower power. I've done one on vibe coding apps, on automations. I think we're going to do one on Lovables soon. I just joined their ambassador program. So yeah, those are the main three. And we've got them going 2 every month, and then the hands-on workshop one is about every other month.
Wow. What gets you going? Why did you decide to keep doing these and spinning? You're likely going to spin up one in Oslo, Norway, sometime.
Yeah.
Why'd you keep them going and putting up new ones? And don't you get tired? Do you get tired of these? I'm trying to find like what
Yeah.
motivates you to keep doing them.
The community. I mean, they love it. You know, they keep coming back. They enjoy it. That's some people. That's the only place I see them. You know, so yeah, that's what keeps me coming back. And really, the part I get tired of is driving and being stuck in traffic. Because I work from home, I never have to deal with that. This and then this happens like right at the end of the workday when everybody gets off work, and so every other week, you know, when I go to these things, I'm stuck in traffic for an hour. Like that's the part I don't like. I love the
Yeah.
event.
Yeah, let's get into a bit of the practical strategies here. So, something I identified is you find potential that is currently being underserved and you try to make it better. So, you reach out to a founder or an organizer of an event that's, slowly died and you could see it clearly needs help and you can help bring it back to life. Would you
Mhm.
say that's a strategy to quickly get started? Is
Oh
that
yeah,
your way to go?
actually, that's my number one tip, and I just shared this. In the Lovable Slack ambassador thing I joined recently, and we were talking about events, and there were a lot of questions around how to get started because there's like 100 of us that just became ambassadors for Lovable, and I have a lot of experience with events, but by the questions, I could tell that a lot of the other people they had experience with Lovable and with development, but not with the event part. Um, and so, like the number one tip that I had for everyone is that like don't try to build it from scratch until you at least look. Like, see if there's an existing meetup group or even a Facebook group or whatever that's not either inactive, like or just isn't meeting in person yet, and that can be your seed. You know, like the initial group of people, so that when you create an event, you got 100 people to notify instead of starting from zero. Um, and two of the three that I help lead now started that way. So like absolutely, that's the number one thing to try first. Second tip is to uh, pick your one platform that's your main one, but then also cross post it. Um, Meetup has worked great for discovery for us. I'm not a huge fan of the platform as an end user of it or an admin. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not great, but it does help people find us. Um, and then Eventbrite, the thing I like there is that you can do recurring events on like the first Monday, the third Wednesday, or whatever. And so I don't have to go create it again every time. Um, and so that one I do just because it was a one-time deal, and now it sends the traffic to Meetup, and so like get it out there in different places, but make it easy and have your one main one. I can keep going. I got tons of things that
Yeah.
have
So
helped build.
step one, find a community that could need saving, right? Because you have an audience existing that you can just tap into, and you likely already have people that are interested and just looking forward to the next one, right? So
Mhm.
that saves you like a ton of initial work. What does step two look like to setting up a local community? Is it figuring out what an agenda is, figuring out where it's going to happen? What
Yeah.
do you do next?
So I think a real important thing to help it build is to have a regular schedule and hopefully venue. Maybe rotate between two or three regular venues if you needed, but having a regular schedule is a huge thing. And so pick something easy like the first Friday, third Wednesday or whatever. And when you're consistent with that, like it makes it so much easier for other people to plan and to tell other people about it. And it's not like you got to check the calendar and remember what the date is because it's just whatever the third Wednesday happens to be. Um, so that really helps with growth. And then again, if the location can be consistent every time, that helps. Um, Something that we do is at every meetup, two of them are at a pizza place, and so at every meetup, I reserve the following month. I make sure that we're on the book there and that they keep that spot reserved for us. And so the group knows every month we're going to be there the first Wednesday for Global AI and the third Wednesday for Tallahassee Devs. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, that helps a ton. If you aren't there yet, if you're trying to find the regular venue, obviously like restaurants that have a meeting space is one option, but a good way to find them is search on Meetup and Eventbrite for other local nonprofits or groups and just see where they meet, because they don't all have their own space. They're usually like borrowing some other space, and that helps you find the places that are open to that and that have room for it, and are used to like a third party group just kind of coming in and taking over for a few hours. So yeah, search to see where the other types of clubs meet, and that'll help you identify those places. And then the other thing is making it an actual chapter of of a bigger organization. I think that helps with growth, and it makes your group seem more legitimate when you approach some third party, some business or restaurant or whatever it is, and you're asking to use their meeting space for free, right? I mean, unless you're trying to create an expense and charge your members or whatever, you got to find somewhere you can do it for free every month. So. Um, I think it's helped us a lot by having the chapter name behind it for Global AI and Code and Coffee. The third one is Tallahassee Devs, which is obviously just Tallahassee, and so there are no chapters. But it really helps. And so, like, look to see what types of groups are similar to what you're trying to build, but they don't have a chapter in your city. So like if you're in Atlanta, look at New York and San Francisco and see what chapters exist there that align with the type of events you're doing, and then approach that group and see if you can start the Atlanta chapter. Um, and who knows? There's probably other people in the area that would be interested. And once you get the ball rolling, you'll have people jump in and help actually like do the event planning and speaking and all that.
That's a great point. Is um, just looking elsewhere for something that's working that just doesn't have a chapter in your city,
Mhm.
and making it work. And I think more often than not, the organizers of the main event are looking to expand. Like they'll be grateful if someone says, "Hey, we want to do the same thing. We just want to do it in our city. Like, do you want us to facilitate that?"
Yeah.
Likely they'll say yes. Like, wow, that's it's amazing. It's a pleasure. You
Yes.
want to even do
And
that.
I listed those in order that you should do it, but I just want to emphasize that you should do the meetup thing or whatever and try to find an existing group and then approach them about creating a chapter. Because like some organizations might have a bare minimum, like they want you to have two chapter leads and 10 members before you form a chapter or whatever, right? So
Oh,
I,
okay.
I wouldn't start with trying to form a chapter. Like get some people together first, have a few meetings. Hopefully you can uh, join or take over an existing group if it's inactive or whatever. Just that list of people that were interested before to send out the notification for your first meeting. That's huge.
Yeah, that's great. And the part about finding a way to sustain it month to month, right? I think that's something we could go a bit deeper on, because a lot of meetups die not because of just zeal, but a lot of them are like, yeah, I couldn't keep buying pizza out of pocket. It's a lot to just drive out here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the for the love of the game part, but there's also like it costs money, or they just couldn't find a space and they
Mhm.
needed to. The spaces they could find were only paid. What are ways to keep these costs at zero at least and get the community going?
I did cover the cost between the three of us. There's three different organizers for the three groups, and we all kind of, share the duties on it. And we didn't ask for anything, but occasionally people would pitch in. And then after like 4 or 5 months of it, they're like, wait, who pays for all this? And so they started asking to pitch in. And then like the first night that people all really tried to, it was such a mess. It was like, I got PayPal. Wait, no, you got Venmo? Does anybody have Zelle? And nobody had cash. And so I set up Buy Me a Coffee, which takes all the different payment things, and then you take a little cut. But it's a central place that people can pitch in, and then that just goes to next month if they want to. I don't ask for it, but enough people did ask to pitch in that we put together something to make it easy, because it was a mess when we tried to do it ad hoc at the end of a meetup. Um, and then you can also do things that where you just, like either a potluck or a cookout at like a park where people bring stuff. Um, or, the after works, you kind of need something to eat or have it like it's going to be too late
Yeah.
to do both. So maybe on the weekend you do a morning coffee thing. Like that's way cheaper to just meet up at a coffee place and it's not a whole meal.
Yeah.
Different options, but yeah, I've been fortunate enough that we found venues that they don't charge us to use the space, and then we'll pitch in and usually order like appetizers or one big pizza for everybody to split, and then people cover their own drinks, and if they want
Yeah.
more to eat, they get their own stuff. Um, but yeah, experiment with different formats. There's definitely ways to do it where you don't have an expense, every time. To try to do it for free every single month, that can be tough.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And I guess for venues, there are usually like a lot of venue alternatives, right? Depending on what's available, from pizza spots to um, places where others have organized events. And I also see like a lot of offices have some very large auditorium that they are willing to give away, right? Just so folks can come into the office for an event. What are
Yeah.
options for venues that you usually look at?
The two that we have are at the meeting space. Like it's a separate event space in a restaurant, and it's closed off, like it's quiet, and they have a TV for us to present, so it's perfect. The other one is it's a local startup incubator and a nonprofit co-working
Hmm.
space. So like those are the two things I'd look for first. Outside of that, there tends to be like nonprofits that'll have a meeting space that's shared, and those are more like sometimes they're city or county or state or whatever type buildings or a university, uh,
Yeah.
but it's different everywhere. And I've seen where was it? Oh, I was involved in a tech event in Chattanooga, and I was doing some research there, looking for a venue, and I found this list that somebody put together of all of the different places that meetups and tech groups and whatever could host something, and it was a really cool resource somebody put together, and it's a wide range. It's not just restaurants and whatever, like parks and municipal spaces, that are just kind of there provided, like not an outdoor park, but some cities have like some indoor spaces like that that are part of the city. So it's different everywhere. Just look to see what other groups are doing.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks. And something you mentioned was, you talked about the restaurant having a screen where you can present and it's closed off. Speaking of presentation, how do you plan what will be spoken about? Like what the agenda is? Do you make it like, hey, this is just free form? Is there like a specific agenda? Is there a strategy to the agenda as well, where you probably have like community sessions, or you have like some special those segments that actually, are a sauce for the
Mhm.
community? How does that look like looking at the content itself?
It's a mix. The informal ones, the two that are after work and at the pizza place, we we do have presentations, but they're not scheduled. It's not a set topic. It's whoever wants to present, and there's three or four of us that do regularly, and then we encourage everybody else, and there's a handful that have all done like one here and there. Um, but it's you don't have to sign up ahead of time. You don't have to be a certain topic. We want a very low bar, and we want to encourage new people to come and present. And so like no pressure, no like minimum standard, whatever. It's just get up there and
Yeah,
do it. But then the hands-on workshop thing that's on the weekend, and everybody brings their laptop and is like actually working. Those are way more structured and scheduled, and we tell them all ahead of time what the agenda is and why you should join. Um, so it's really a different format for different purpose and group.
yeah. Oh, that's cool. And um, have do companies approach you to like sponsor these? Um, how do you also approach that? Because companies want to invest in anywhere there is some foot traffic, right? Because they get an audience. How have you approached that so far?
I'm sorry, your audio. I lost the first half of that. What's the? How do you
Oh,
approach what?
yeah. I said, how do companies, if or do companies approach you to like sponsor or support the community in some way? How do you approach that? What do they see as value add? And is this something you consider, or it's just like, hey, we're glad if you want to support us.
Mhm.
We don't offer anything um, certain in return.
Right.
How does that?
So
What does that look
with
like?
the restaurants, they're getting business. We bring people in, and everybody pays their own bill separately or whatever. But that's enough for the restaurant. Like they haven't asked for anything for the meeting space. Um, and then the other one, I have a good relationship with the local co-working space because that's where I started my business, and so they let us do that once a month for free there. So it hasn't really been an issue with those, but years ago, I was involved in events with non-tech stuff with the local running and mountain bike clubs, and for those, we did get business sponsors, and so it would be more about advertising in return for their business, and sometimes we did like uh, punch cards or things to like drive traffic back to a certain place. So some type of incentive for our members to drive business to that business in exchange for them sponsoring. And yeah, get creative. Like I think to do that, you have to have the group. Have the numbers to have anything to offer for them. Like, yeah, I'm going to bring
Yeah.
you 20, 30 people. Uh, so that might be harder to do at the beginning, but I think you'll get leverage as your group grows, and maybe you can get business sponsors because of the size and activity of your group.
Yeah. No, I agree. Is you create value first inherently, and then folks would actually reach out to you. Like people would reach out to you to have you organize stuff in their space if they know you organize something like that.
Hmm.
So long as you have numbers, you can say to them, "Hey, I'm gonna bring 100 people to your restaurant on Thursday evening," which is almost like or Wednesday when no one's there normally.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be very excited about that. Um, I guess to close off, I'm curious, what's one thing people get wrong when they think about setting up a community? Like, what do they do that ultimately sets them up for failure from your experience?
I've seen and done myself where you rush to a big event, like something where there's a lot of prep into it before you have the crowd and the regulars. You need the regular people to show up for the smaller, low stakes events before you put a bunch of effort into a big thing. Don't just think that because you put work into it and you advertise and whatever and expect people to show. So keep it low effort and work on building the group and the community and getting regular people there. And then once that's working, then you got that kind of flywheel effect. Then you can plan a bigger thing where you're investing and it might cost you something to rent the space and you spend, you know, a month planning it and advertising. Like, don't go all in on that until the regulars are there every month.
That's a great tip. Yeah, I was actually thinking about making the same mistake soon.
Yeah.
Is because you do this a couple times. Like a lot of times, you get too confident. Like you get overconfident. You feel like, yeah, I'm just gonna go to the middle of Australia and I could just set up a community and we get like 200 people showing up to an event there. This just made me touch grass now, and I just realized like, yeah, I think maybe I've overshot myself. I need to rethink it. I've been planning an event
Yeah.
recently, and usually I usually start events by just having like an after work with maybe 5 or 10 people showing up.
Hmm.
Um, but for this one, the very first event that I'm shooting for like 150 people RSVP, uh, and just expectation wise, I think now I probably wouldn't get up to like 20 people showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is the first one.
Yeah, I've done it myself, and I've seen others, and it's great when it actually works out. But if you put all that effort in and then nobody shows, it's
Yeah.
rather than feeling like you failed. Like put the effort into building the community first, and then they'll show.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Put the effort into building the community first, and they'll show. And before I miss this, can companies intentionally create local communities and facilitate them? What do they need to do? Is there anything different they need to do in this case, aside from maybe finding a local organizer that then runs this process that
Mhm.
you've spoken about? Or is there something else or some other way they need to think about it?
Yeah, well, the ambassador programs, that's the main thing, kind of the obvious thing that a lot of companies will do to find those people and get them active wherever. But I think some of the things I've seen from ambassador programs, they have uh, maybe too high of requirements for what they expect for the people that aren't in a big city. Like I've done okay here trying to build it, but it's still like not a huge crowd because we're not a big city. And if somebody's in like some little town and there's just nobody that's going to come out for an event just for that one topic. So like if Hands on Table tried to start an ambassador program, I wouldn't expect people to come out for an event about our company in even a big city. Like it would still be tough. But if you broaden the scope of it and you're creating events around tech in general, or automation or whatever it is, and then occasionally you put in that topic, that thing that you're an ambassador for, you're going to have a lot more success, get more people interested because it's not such a narrow topic, and
Mm-hmm.
and an event on that narrow topic is only going to work in a huge city, so you're limiting the ambassadors and their engagement and the type of events and locations uh, by trying to make it all about you. Like instead have ambassador programs where you just want them to go out and be active in whatever existing group. They don't have to start one that's just about your company, and then if they go to that group regularly and occasionally mention you as the ambassador, I think that makes it more accessible to more people that are interested but don't meet the bar of hosting a whole event that's going to have 30 people show because they live in a tiny town.
Yeah, that's a very underappreciated point, and also like often overlooked, because companies always looking at the bottom line, trying to figure like we need to do something that directly ties to our product. It has to tie to pipeline.
Hmm.
Community is a marketing line item, right? So it has to be about the product. Whereas if you bring people around a common interest, which is in your product, especially like in the very early days, you have the opportunity to find more people that would naturally just gravitate towards your product than the other way around, right? So I'd assume if Lovable started tomorrow morning and decided to pull up an ambassador program, no one would show up, right? There are probably other companies right now trying to do the same thing, but they don't have a lot of people wanting to show up to be ambassadors for them or host events. But once you make it about, say, vibe coding or just building with AI agents in general, suddenly you've just broadened the scope. There are lot more people interested, and also a lot more people interested in learning about your product and how it fits
Yeah.
that interest at
I
that
think
time.
Lovable actually has gotten big enough. They have a ton of people that are interested. They just had 100
Yeah.
join last week. I was in the newest group that came through for ambassadors, but I get what you're saying though. And so like bigger companies like Supabase, they have an ambassador program where they pick people for a certain city, and there's an ambassador for like say Toronto that's doing events there. Um, they're big enough that I think they can have a event focused just on Supabase or just
Yeah.
Lovable or whatever. But the smaller the company, like you're going to have a really hard time. You might find an individual who wants to be in your program, but are they going to find enough people in that city to get an event around your narrow little topic? Like
Yeah.
that's the challenge. And so you've got people that are interested that want to be an ambassador, but you're only paying attention to the ones that are in the big cities, and like there needs to be an in between way for them to engage, and you can't expect to fill a room about a tiny topic in a tiny town, right? You got
Yeah.
to. So just broaden the scope. Yeah. So I don't know. There's something there. Maybe it needs to be. I think it'd be cool to have like an ambassador program where it's not specific to one company, um, like a co-op
Sure.
ambassador thing, and then
Yeah.
companies join that, and then devs join it, and it's kind of in the middle, and like you're in this
Hmm.
program, and you can represent like multiple companies. Maybe there needs to be like something in between for companies that don't want to roll their own from scratch and have to be big enough for that.
That's a great idea. We used to do something similar at Hackmamba, my developer growth agency. We did that with content roll-ups, right? So you're going to write a tutorial. You would use software stack from like auth database. You want the backend as a service. You
Hmm.
want some real-time integration. You just pull four different products and create content around that. And they all get some brand value from it. We already have brand collaborations going on. So why can that transcend to advocacy and community engagement in general and ambassador programs like you mentioned? So that's a fantastic idea.
Man, you already got the Hack Mama brand and everything to run it underneath. If you need some help building it, I'm all in.
Yeah, sure. I'll let you know. I just got to find time.
Cool. Well, this has been
Yeah,
awesome, man. I appreciate you having me on.
yeah. Thanks. I see we're already like way past time, but thanks for coming on, man. This has been fantastic.
Cool. Awesome, man. It's been
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, cheers. And that's today's episode of Everything Outside Code, everyone. And see you on the next one.
All right. Have a good one.
Yeah, cheers.